First of all, thank you again for joining us here in the Morning News Center.
You're welcome.
Folks in Greenwich and Stamford are familiar with your story, how you became the leader in Connecticut corporate real estate. Right. Many listened to your popular podcast last year, Let Me Be Your Landlord. Yeah. But what people may not be aware of is that you have this affinity for the arts, and specifically the Bard of Avon.
Yeah.
You're excited to announce this newest round of free nights, free, with Shakespeare. And it is a community series that begins again April 2nd at 6:30. Tell us all about this.
I've been going to Shakespeare readings for almost 20 years now. Started over 25 years ago. And about 15 years ago, when the city of Stratford canceled their program, I hired a gentleman that was doing his, Bob Smith, to come up to my auditorium, and I gave free Shakespeare lectures. Okay, we went different ways, and I went down to the New York Y, 92nd Street Y, and I listened to this gentleman named Leo Schaefer, and Leo was really terrific. A little different than Bob Smith. And what I liked about Leo is his reference materials. He would read the play and then read where Shakespeare got all this information from, the sources. And I found it very interesting. What's wonderful about what we do is that he'll read the play as if he's an actor, because he is an actor. And then he'll go back and he'll reread all the lines and explain to you all the lines, what's being said here, and what's the meaning of it at that time. You know, the history, the culture of that time to understand the play better, okay? And he does a fantastic job. So it makes it so enjoyable, because it's so hard to understand Shakespeare if you don't have that background.
So I attended one of these back in the autumn.
Yes.
And I went into this not knowing very much at all about Shakespeare. And first of all, the room, the community center here, the auditorium, was full.
Yes.
And second, I walked away informed and entertained.
Right.
You don't have to know about Shakespeare to attend this.
No. The wonderful thing is to be able to come and also it's a community thing. I mean, if you notice in that room, most of the people are senior citizens. It's free because people, some people retire, watch every nickel. Okay, it's really their night out. They get dressed up, right? They come, they socialize a little bit.
Ask questions.
They ask questions, and it's I mean, I can guarantee you I've never got a tenant from this event, okay? I've been doing it 20 years. I do it because I think it's my duty to try to spread this type of culture, Western Civ, it's, I mean, you don't see it anymore. So it's really enjoyable to listen to these plays.
So it's a dramatic reading and interpretation by actor Leo Schaff. Which play did you choose this time?
We're doing Romeo and Juliet this time. We did Shakespeare last time. I mean, Julius Caesar. Romeo and Juliet is always a fun play to do. It's so, relevant. I mean, there are people who have picked sides, right? A rose is a rose, no matter what color you call it, right? I mean, it's so relevant to what we're experiencing today in our culture. People are trying to tear us apart based on our religion, based on our nationality, based on our race, where Shakespeare says we're all the same. I think that was the line, right? By any other name of roses, there'll be a rose.
Where did your interest begin?
It began really in Dr. Peter Harity's class in Shakespeare, sophomore year in high school. I had such a tough time reading. but we did Romeo and Juliet. Yes, we did Romeo and Juliet in high school play, and then when I went to college, went nights at night. There was a guy who taught a business class from Greenwich, and he was kind enough to bring us down to his house for an afternoon dinner, a brunch. And he said, if you understand Shakespeare, he says, you understand human nature, and you don't need any other source. Because Shakespeare understood. I like to say Shakespeare is not an author. He's not a playwright. He's a philosopher, right? He has a philosophy on life, and in understanding human nature. So if you understand all the characters in Shakespeare, you understand human nature, you can deal with people on a much higher level. Like one of the great lines, there's so many millions of great lines. The truth is often said in jest. Just think about that line. The truth is often said in jest. When people say something funny, that's how they really think. Okay? The great line, the first thing we shall do is kill all the lawyers. Is that a great line?
I said you should lead with that one. I find it interesting that you walk away from this particular event, and again, it's coming up April 2nd is the first, and it runs for how many weeks?
Probably 8 or 10, depending on the length of the plays.
Through May the 21st. Yeah. And we'll put all the dates up on.
And it's free to the public. Anybody can come. And then we have a great restaurant called El Palio, so you can
stick around.
You can either go early and eat early, or you go after and you have something to eat.
So for people listening in Greenwich and Stamford, this is in Shelton. This is at RD Scinto.
It's easy to get to. It's 40 minutes from Greenwich. I used to live in Greenwich. I used to commute every day to work.
What I was going to say was I think it's interesting that you attend this, and even if you have preconceived, understanding of Shakespeare, and you've said this yourself, you walk away thinking about each individual play or scene or act differently.
Oh, there's no question about it. There's none. Shakespeare was a remarkable person. I'm one of the people who believe that Shakespeare didn't write the plays. He took credit as a producer, but he never wrote any of these plays. There's no doubt in my mind Edward de Vere wrote all these plays, okay? And if you look at Edward de Vere's life, it was in Hamlet. Everything that happened in Hamlet happened to Edward de Vere. Macbeth, King Lear, he had 3 daughters, just like King Lear had 3 daughters. And just like when they took his empire away from King Lear, his daughters took his real estate away from de Vere. So all you have to do is read Edward de Vere. And you understand.
Is this a controversial take?
No, it's not. Anybody with any brains realizes it. To begin with, the name Shakespeare in the earlier plays, it was not Shakespeare. It was Shake-Spear. It was a synonym. Edward de Vere didn't want anyone to know what he was thinking because he was royalty. He was royalty. He was part of the court. Okay, Queen Elizabeth gave him £1,000 a year. It was no reason. The head of defense in England at the time was paid £150 a year, but they were giving Shakespeare £1,000 a year. And the reason was he was writing these historical plays about the Tudor family, how great the Tudors were. You got to understand something, John. At that time when Shakespeare wrote, the only way you can communicate to the masses, because they couldn't read,
from the stage.
Was from the stage. So they paid Shakespeare to write these plays about how great the Tudor family was. All right? And even when Queen Elizabeth died and King James became the next king, he continued to give Shakespeare £1,000 a year. All right? Not Shakespeare, Edward de Vere.
So how did Shakespeare become the guy?
Shakespeare showed up and he had the same name, okay? And he was from the country. Shakespeare, You got to understand something. The man who wrote Shakespeare had to speak 5 languages. Where do you learn 5 languages? Okay? I mean, one of the plays he even quotes in French. All right? So he had to have, remember, Edward de Vere went to Oxford when he was 8 years old. That's how smart he was. And we know everyone who went to Oxford or Cambridge. The history books, we know who they were. The historical person called Shakespeare, there's no history of him ever attending any school. He couldn't read or write. He has one thing written in his own hand, his will, right? His will, okay? That's the only thing we have. How could the greatest writer in the history of Western world don't have one thing written in his hand? Does this make any sense to anybody?
Have you brought this up with Leo?
Oh, yeah, we're on opposite pages on that one, okay?
That's great.
But I studied Shakespeare. I mean, I can tell you everything about Edward de Vere, 17th Earl of Oxford, just for your own knowledge.
Is the information is out there for people who might be
you
easy
can read.
enough
There's
to
a
find?
great book written on it. That's all my knowledge I just gave you came from one book.
Which is?
It's Who Wrote Shakespeare. It's a great book.
We'll link to that too.
Okay.
Do your own research, folks.
Right.
But either way,
Yes.
regardless of who wrote this stuff,
Yes.
come April 2nd.
Please come. You'll love it. It's a great night out.
And ask questions. I mean, when we go around at the end of the
When he goes, he asks people to ask any questions. It's like a class. It's like going to school. It's like being taught.
there's a slide, there's a visual presentation.
There's a little bit visual, and not as much as we used to do, but a little bit. We had a guy that I liked the guy a lot, but he was charging me $150 an hour to come and go, $300 a night for putting some slides up on the screen. I'm already paying for everything. You know what I mean? So I said, we'll put our own slides up.
April 2nd, April 9th, 16th, 23rd, 30th,
Right.
and then May 7th, 14th.
Right, and we also give you a free script, so when you show up, you can follow, you don't need to bring a book.
That's a good point. It makes it
You follow, you take notes.
easier to follow, to read along with
Yeah.
it, for sure. RD Scinto Inc. I did want to just, before I let you go, we follow the news. This is the morning news center
Yes,
that you're on
fantastic.
right now. And we did notice recently that in your capacity as a fundraiser for the Downtown Cabaret in Bridgeport,
Yes.
you ran into a little bit of a logjam with this ceasefire that the
Yes.
city council in Bridgeport
Yes.
decided to, I don't know. I mean, I guess, was it a proclamation? I mean, it's not a...
I don't know what it was.
So tell us about your feeling on that.
My feeling on that is that I have been the chairman of the Downtown Cabaret for 41 years. Okay, I have invested over $2 million personally to keep the theater open. Why am I doing that? Because I made the difference of keeping the theater open. The theater, 82,000 people a year would come to downtown Bridgeport at night to see live performances. And I thought I wanted to help make Bridgeport different. I'm very involved in Bridgeport. Bridgeport area, Bridgeport Rescue Mission. I just gave $25,000 to have the main event in Stanford. The Merton House that we feed 600 people a day. I found them a new home and paid for the architect to do the plans. So I'm really committed to the city. And I've recently been able to get M&T, the bank, to give me a $1.3 million mortgage to buy the theater from the people who own it. Okay. Now, I don't have the commitment letter yet, but I have a verbal. So what I'm trying to do is to raise money for the deposit. So now the Jewish community has always been very, very, very supportive of the cabaret. Kurt Hersha, Stevenson Lumber, Jerry Baum, Eastern Bag and Paper. Whenever I call them up, and they always give me money, all right? And so I asked one of my Jewish friends recently, Donnie, his name is. I said, Donnie, could I count on $10,000 because I'm trying to raise the deposit to buy the theater. This way I can always keep the theater open. And he said to me, Bob, are you crazy? After what they just passed in Bridgeport, I won't give you a dime. Well, that I went to just say to the people in Bridgeport, the Common Council, and the Common Council has been very good to the Downtown Cabaret. Don't get me wrong, okay? I'd say, listen, I'm here trying to help Bridgeport raise money. Is this a tent that we need to put our nose into? I mean,
just to be clear, they announced that there would be a support for a ceasefire, upsetting the Jewish community.
Yeah, okay. Please, these poor Jews, okay? I mean, they march in, they kill 1,200 people, and now they want a ceasefire. But my point to the council was, listen, do you think they're going to say, everyone,
Hamas,
stop fighting. They just passed something in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and we have to stop fighting, okay? All right? Do you think that's going to happen? All right? So, listen, I'm just here. Listen, I'm not trying to take any positions. I'm just trying to say, I'm trying to help downtown. I'm trying to help Bridgeport. So do we need to do that? That was my point.
So where do you stand with that project?
No, the Downtown Cabaret?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to try to raise the money. We're going to get commitment. And if we can buy the building, then we can know that the theater will always be in business. All right? We'll have a home. We'll make some improvements. I've worked hard at this for a long time, John. I mean, Richard Howard used to come to my office with his wife, Susan, who the best people in the world. And I used to have to write checks out at $40,000 at a time to make payroll. Otherwise, the theater wasn't going to go on Saturday. Okay, so I've worked very hard at this. So I just wanted the Common Council to know. Listen, please.
You're making this harder.
That's the right answer. You're making this harder for me.
We brought my daughter there. There's really great afternoon programs.
The children's
around the
show.
holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, speaking of holidays, before we let you go, any Easter message?
Well, what's wonderful about New England is very simple. Every 90 days, you get a brand new deal with the weather. That's what's wonderful about Connecticut. So, spring is around the corner. There is, we're almost there. And you feel good about yourself and about your environment and about your life. So enjoy every moment.
I look forward to seeing what you do with the campus this spring, summer.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have 7,000 flowers. I will tell you, next year at Christmas, you got to come up and see what I'm doing. I just got finished. I brought in someone from Florence. Italy. I saw a display that was knocked your eyes out. And we're working on Christmas decorations for next year.
Can't wait. April 2nd, though. That's the next big date. And we'll see you here in Shelton.
Thank you very much for your time, John.
Good to catch up.
Thank you so much.